Hello and welcome to Off the Shelf Reviews.
I was one of the original 7 samurai.
And I'm Gary. And today we're going to review and discuss Battle Beyond the Stars, which came out in 1980 by Roger Corman. Ian, why don't you give us the synopsis?
Well, the story follows Shad, played by Richard Thomas, who lives on the planet Akir. The planet is invaded by Lord Sador and his army of mutants, and Lord Sador demands that the Akirian people hand over all of their harvest in 7 risings of their moon, or he will come back and fire his stellar converter at their planet and turn them all into space dust. Shad and the village elders decide to head off and find a group of mercenaries to come back and protect their planet from Lord Sador.
Star Wars, obviously, being one of the biggest influences in cinema,
Yep.
especially around the early 80s. I think at this point, The Empire Strikes Back had just come out, and so had, I think, Flash Gordon. And so there was a revitalization within the sci-fi genre. And, of course, Roger Corman, who wouldn't let an opportunity pass, decided that this was going to be his chance to make a Star Wars knockoff.
Yeah.
But what's interesting about this project is that he put more money into this than pretty much anything else that he would ever put money into. I think it was about $2 million. And he created a team of people that were all eager to get to work on the next Star Wars. He got a group of people together and said, well, this is the Magnificent Seven in space.
Yeah.
And George Lucas would even say himself that Star Wars was inspired by samurai films and the Magnificent Seven. And so he literally said, so Roger Corman said to his special effects team, go and make some spaceships.
Yeah.
And a young James Cameron, who had managed to get his foot in the door by showcasing a video that he had made by himself, I think it was Xenogenesis, which is a 10-minute video which pretty much sums up every single James Cameron film that he would go on to make after this point. And James Cameron, being aware of who Roger Corman was, aware of his past in sexploitation, decided, I'm going to make Roger Corman a spaceship with tits on it. And straight away, James Cameron got the job. And that ship is the title ship of the film. And, of course, we also have Gale Hurd, who was working with James Cameron at this point. And, of course, the late, great James Horner, who would, I think this was his first sort of major motion picture that he would write the soundtrack for. And his soundtrack really, really elevates this film, and it's one of the most memorable aspects to it. And when you're rewatching the film and listening to his music, you're sort of hearing the faint notes of what he would then go on to use in the Star Trek movies or even the Aliens movie. So the production for this film, it was very rushed, and they didn't have a lot of money to work with, and all of the sets and practical effects were built literally out of garbage. But what they put into it was heart and soul, and they really managed to churn something out which is, well, kind of standed the test of time.
Snipers forward.
Snipers. Forward!
Fire at will.
Yeah. See, nostalgically, I remember seeing this film before I watched Star Wars, before I watched Empire, before I watched Star Trek. There was this film that I watched where a guy was flying what I could only describe as a giant space snail. That was it. That's all I could really remember from being a kid. But as the years would go on, I'd come across Battle Beyond the Stars over and over again, and I'd be like, oh my god, I remember this film. This film's awesome. And then I actually, got to the point where I started watching Akira Kurosawa movies and realized that, wow, the Americans really love to rip the shit out of the fucking Asians. Like we said, Star Wars, the original Star Wars is the Hidden Fortress, but made in space. The Hidden Fortress is a classic if you ever get around to watching it. And obviously 7 Samurai would be remade into the Magnificent Seven, and then it would be remade into Battle Beyond the Stars. So, if you've ever seen 7 Samurai, or even Magnificent Seven, you can pretty much just know the plot. to battle beyond the stars, you know? But it's those little things that this movie brings up that really makes it, like Gary says, to stand the test of time. The first thing is that fucking racing space snail, you know, with Nell, the talking artificial computer on board. She is smart, she is sassy, she swears, she takes no shit. She fires lasers out the top of her handlebar eyeballs, you know, and doesn't need... She will give you the command so that you can fly her and shoot with her, but if she needs to, she'll take command herself and use the weapons herself.
Fire!
Not from behind.
Stepped in it, kid. You gotta follow through.
No, not from behind, no. You fired without me.
It had to be done.
You're placed under my direct command. You fired without me. That which is not organic must not...
Harm that which is. I know. It's a damn stupid rule.
You've got the great Richard Thomas. Now, Gary, I've got a question for you. What is more famous, Richard Thomas or Richard Thomas's mole? Because for me, that mole has seen probably more screen time than anybody else. Just through sheer Richard Thomas being there. I mean, we're talking The Waltons, I believe he was in. You know, we're talking Stephen King's It.
That's where I recognised him from the most.
Yeah, I remember him from a TV movie. I think it was Operation Shark or something.
It was a film where a naval ship sank and they were all stuck in the ocean.
Yeah,
it always reminds me of Quint's story from Jaws.
That's it. It was based on the Indianapolis. It's based on a true story,
right.
and he was one of the crew members. And he was such a massively great actor, but he always kind of seemed to play the same innocently, I'm an innocent man, I just do my own natural thing, acting. But he delivered it so well that you kind of just believed it, you know.
He does seem almost like a classical actor, and I am very surprised that he didn't get more work than perhaps he should have done.
Yeah, that's it. He should have got more. The colourful characters you get in this movie. I mean, we've got John Saxon playing Lord Sador. Now, John Saxon I remember as the karate champion from Enter the Dragon, and also Nancy's dad.
He was in like 3 of the Nightmare on Elm Street films.
Yeah, and then you see him in this with that red scar running down his face. Lord of the Mutants. Or the Mandalorian. No, the Mandalorians are fucking Star Wars. I'm getting confused now. Lord of the Mutants. You know, he's got this massive ship and this huge army. You know, and what do? They fly from planet to planet, just blasting them with the stellar converter. And you're like, oh, space opera.
I love the fact that he turns up at this planet and he's like, yeah, look, I am the most powerful. I am your god. I have this weapon which does this.
Yeah. I'm
like, okay, so it changed the color of the sun? Isn't that going to have like a profound impact on these people?
No. He shoots at, I can't remember the name of the planet, but he shoots at a planet and it literally, I think it burns like the entire surface because it goes from normal planet color to like white.
And just to prove his point to the people, he decides he's going to fire some guns and kill some of them anyway.
Oh, yeah.
And I love these guys. They get hit by these lasers and they just throw themselves all over the set.
And you will accept me as your master. If you do not submit, your planet and all life on it will be burned to ash.
Snipers forward. Fire at will.
We're talking 1980s, so weaponry, even futuristic weaponry, hadn't even been fully decided yet. But it's the way he turns off the communication and goes, get the snipers. So as soon as he said that, you don't see it, but I imagine that there was a bunch of people in the spaceship like opening a window and like climbing out and just randomly firing laser blasts at it, at the planet. And yeah, people would just start getting killed left and right. The thing is, I always remembered this film being a lot more kiddish, but there are quite a few dark elements in it. You know, like we said, right at the beginning, you've got this evil dictator telling these people, you're going to feed me and all my army or I'm going to wipe your whole planet out. It's a bit harsh, you know? You then got people just being blasted right at the beginning. You know, you've got rape sequence, possible, you don't actually see it, but possible rape sequences that come along later on. You've got conversations of people telling you that their whole planet, their whole people have been made extinct. You know, you've got Shad being kind of coerced into breeding with other females because the guy on the space station wants to hear children again. I'm like, I remember this being a kid's film.
I was so surprised rewatching this film at how much what I thought was initially sexual innuendo.
Yeah,
but I was wrong. No, they're actually just talking about sex. I was like, I watched this as a kid and this just went, took all my hair off, obviously. I had no idea what was going on. It went right over my head. Watching it now, I'm just like, damn, they really didn't care, did they?
Yeah, they didn't care.
It's the sequence, yeah, when they send Shad off to go and recruit help to save this planet. And the first place he goes to is this sort of space station.
Yeah,
and it's
Dr. Hepatitis, I think he's called, or Hephaestus.
Yeah, Hephaestus. And it's all automated. And I'm just like, okay, so, you can't afford R2-D2 and C-3PO and any of the other robots, so we just spray paint these guys a little bit white and let them do the robot as they move around.
Yeah.
But I was like, you know what, it works. These actors are selling it well, the sets are fine, it's cheesy, but I believe it because the filmmakers and the actors believe it too.
Yeah.
And he meets the one female on this spaceship. Then he meets the father. And the father's like, yeah, I listened to your conversation, and now I'm going to keep you here so that my daughter can breed with you to repopulate the entire station.
This station was built for many. It remains a hollow and lonely place. You've met my daughter.
Yes? Wait a minute. You don't mean that you want me to breed with your daughter?
Now, part of me was just like, okay, fine, whatever. Yeah. At the same time, just like, this is really awful. This guy's like, he can listen in every single room. So he's got this weird half man, half robot thing. Just what is this?
Yeah.
Roger Corman in Sexploitation just sort of merging the two here.
Yeah, that part with the father, and he's just like, yeah, you're just gonna breed. And I like the way that Shad's like, well, what's your daughter gonna say? Oh, she'll be fine with it. I'm like, nowadays you'd not get away with something like that, but this dad's all smiling. We're gonna have children running around. I like the little conversation he has with the android. The android keeps trying to walk away,
yeah,
and then he keeps talking. The android has to keep turning back, and I'm looking at the actor like, if he wasn't playing an android, he'd literally turn around and be like, will you fuck off, please? One thing I've got to point out now before somebody points it out is the name, the planet Akira. They literally just ripped that from Akira Kurosawa. They say they were paying homage to him. No. You were just like, we need a planet name. Akira, yeah. It's like, so there's a few things from Magnificent Seven where they got Robert Vaughn in, who plays Gelt. Now, like I said, the colourful characters they got in here. Gelt, I'm going to start with Gelt. He's an assassin who's hidden away on his planet because he can't go near any civilized system because he's got a bounty on his head so large.
Robert Vaughn, for me, delivers the best performance out of all of the actors in the film. And, of course, Robert Vaughn originally played Lee in the Magnificent Seven. So Robert Vaughn almost reprises that role in Battle Beyond the Stars, even lifting dialogue from that film straight into the character of Gelt.
Nice.
Almost word for word. And the 5-minute sequence where Shad first meets Gelt is, for me, it's actually my favourite sequence in the entire film because it really tells you who this character of Gelt is. And Robert Vaughn, who, other than the Magnificent Seven, I only ever recognise him as the main villain from Superman 3.
I see Man from U.N.C.L.E. as well.
And the original Man from U.N.C.L.E., of course. And he is just a a powerhouse, such a presence on screen. He's just so calm and so calculated with everything that he says.
Yes.
And he tells you everything that you need to know about this character. The fact that he's accumulated the most wealth that anyone in the universe could possibly have, yet he is a vagrant because he can't spend it, he can't go anywhere. He's trapped in his own making. And I love that character.
I could buy your planet 10 times over what I've gathered in this room. Plutonium, cadmium, qualine crystals. I've been very well paid for my work.
Yeah, but you say he's a colourful character. George Peppard playing Space Cowboy.
The A-Team.
Now, this is how low budget this movie is. He doesn't even get a name. He is just called Cowboy. Because that's what he is. He's a space cowboy delivering weapons left and right all over the place.
He's like a trucker as well. He's got nude pictures on his bunk in the back.
That's it. George Peppard literally just takes this whole role really easy. You know,
it's almost like he takes this role into the A-Team later on. It's like, I'm just going to be the cowboy from now on.
But that's it. The first time we see Space Cowboy, Shad helps him get rid of some jackers, I think they call him, trying to attack him.
Pirates, yeah.
Yeah, he's got some pirates on his tail. And he's got no ammo, but they're just trying to wear down his shield. Cowboy's not worried. He's singing. He's drinking whiskey.
Playing his harmonica.
He's playing his harmonica and smoking a cigar like, well, if I blow up, I blow up. I don't care, you know.
This is Space Cowboy. SOS. Mayday. Help!
He even says to Shad at some point, I like the fact he says, you know, I've been in more battles than I've seen old westerns, and I watch a lot of old westerns. And I'm like, Magnificent Seven. I wonder if he watches that over and over. Obviously, Shad had been to the space station and met up with the Doctor's daughter, Nanelia, I think she's called. And she decides that she's going to leave with Shad and help him. And on the way, she gets captured by Cayman, played by Morgan Woodward. Now, he's a lizard man.
He's a really interesting character.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, he has great sort of makeup effect. Except for when he needs to talk.
Yeah.
Because when he needs to talk, the mask and the mouthpiece just, it doesn't move right.
Yeah.
And so this actor sort of does everything just slightly over the top. It's very theatrical.
Yeah.
And it doesn't quite work for film. So when he's wandering around, he's got this knife out in front of him. And he two-handed sort of marches with it out in front of him. And I'm like, okay, so you're this warrior slaver race that's been wiped out. And now you know, it kind of makes you sort of sympathetic. But at the same time, you are almost just as villainous as Sador.
I like his little two bold Thermians, I think they're called, little heat creatures. They just don't say anything and just wander around. You also have the Nesters, 5 clones, 5 guys with eyeball in their heads who all man the ship together.
You know, the Nesters, when they first turned up, I was just like, okay, that's it. We're going into bizarro Star Trek original series territory now.
Yeah.
And I just thought the concept for the Nesters was almost brilliant. And it, you know, the whole idea of the one central hive mind on the planet that sort of sends out all of its beings, sort of like spores into the universe, where the one being back on the planet can feel and learn everything. And I also love the actor that plays sort of Nestor 1.
Yeah.
And it's Earl Bowen. I think that's how you pronounce his name.
Yeah.
And of course, he would become a friend with James Cameron and go to work on Terminator 1, 2, and eventually Terminator 3 as Dr. Silverman.
Is that Dr. Silverman?
Dr. Silverman.
No way. I couldn't tell with all the makeup they had plastered all over his face.
I just thought he delivers. He has some really comedic moments in the film. One of my favourites is when he's offered a hot dog, and you see him eating it, and you see all the clones behind him chewing it, even though they haven't got it in their mouths. I was like, yeah, it works. Like all of these really creative ideas.
Yeah, see, and that would bring on another dark scene later on where they willingly get one of their nesters captured so that Sador, who likes cutting up body parts and attaching them to his own so that he can live longer.
He's a mutant, so he sort of needs to keep replacing
Yeah,
body parts.
and he cuts off he cuts off this nester's arm, attaches it to his own body, and then it flashes to the other 4 nesters trying to use the arm to kill Sador. And so you're flicking back to Sador trying to slice his own throat, and you're like, oh, are they going to kill him? Oh no, you know.
Well, as we've seen, the nesters are also mind readers, and they also had a sequence where they prevented Shad from shooting at them, and then, you know, forced him to almost shoot himself.
Yes, yeah.
Just as their way of diplomacy, I guess.
Yeah.
No!
Cut it.
We must!
Cut it.
Hurry.
No!
Cut the arm.
One of my all-time favourite characters now.
I think we've saved the best for last.
Saint-Exmin, played by the amazing Sybil Danning. Now, I'm a big Star Wars fan. I like Star Trek as well. But you can keep your Princess Leia outfit and your Deanna Troi outfit, because I just want a space Valkyrie. Wow. I mean, wow. Sybil Danning. Yeah. I only really remember from one other film, and that's Howling 2.
Yeah.
And there's only a couple of scenes that she's in that I actually watched a lot when I was a teenager. I'm not going to go into it. But, you know, when I was younger, I didn't really understand the context of her character. But once I grew hair in weird places, you know, and started becoming a man, when you see her lying down in her cockpit and she's just like hitting buttons, you know, and her bosom is all over the place, you know, and she stood there like one of my favorite scenes is the conversation she has with Nanelia about how she would love to recharge Shad's transistors. And you're like, oh, she's talking about sex. And she doesn't care. She goes, yeah, I'm talking about sex. She practically basically tells you she'd shag the shit out of Shad if she could.
I could do wonders for that boy. I would recharge his capacitors, stimulate his solenoid, tingle, dingle, dangle, prangle his transistors. You know, sex.
Can't imagine what it must be like.
Stick with me. You'll get an education.
Guess so.
I'm going to need 5 minutes.
But Shad has obviously come across all of these crazy, colourful characters, got them all together. They've all got their own different types of ships. That's kind of a cool little thing. They've all got their own different types of ships.
Well, that's what I also really like, is that James Cameron designed all of the characters' ships to be unique.
Yeah.
And not only that, but each one of the ships has, you know, a different interior, and they also have their own distinct sounds when they're traveling through space.
Yes.
Which makes them unique and different.
Yeah, I mean, you've got Nell's ship that seems pretty fast, pretty good firepower. You've got Gelt's that seems to be superiorly faster than it, and obviously he's an expert marksman. Saint-Exmin's ship doesn't have strong firepower, but hers is actually faster than Gelt's, which is saying a lot because Gelt's is pretty fast. Cayman's is pretty armoured, and it's got all the good firepower. And then you've got Nesters, which are controlled by 4 different beings. So every single ship stands out, but they've literally they returned to the planet Akir, and now it's like, right, we've got to wait for him to turn up, with Lord Sador to turn up. We've got to destroy all of his drones, and then we've got to wait for him to lower his shield so that we can destroy the stellar converter. And you're like, not all of you are going to make it back through this.
And so, you know, this being a space opera, we gotta have some space battles. And honestly, this is where the film really falls apart.
It does, yeah.
These are the sequences that don't work or don't stand up so well today. You know, you can rewatch it and enjoy the nostalgia of what they tried to achieve.
Yes.
but it's the fact that all we see is endless cockpit front point of view shots of the front of ships firing lasers, and then a close up of an explosion, and so we get no sense of location, because we see ships in space blowing up, and then in the next sequence they're just above land exploding. You know, people get shot down, and within seconds they crash on the planet, and you're like, well, how far away are they fighting? There's no sense of depth. You don't know where Sador is. You don't know where our rebel fighters are.
Yeah.
And so we never see ships fly past each other.
No.
And if we do, they're few and far between, and they look awful.
It's the replicated shot sequences I always find.
Yeah.
I mean, you'll find a lot of that kind of camera trickery in TV series like old Battlestar Galactica. You know, the same shot of the ship, maybe filmed from a different angle. Now it's turned left. Oh, now it's turning right. You know, in this one, it's like laser blast, laser blast, laser blast, laser blast. I think there's a point where there's a Sador fighter and Gelt are shooting at each other, and it cuts from like the pilot of each ship to the ships, and then really cuts up to a close up of the nose of the ships, laser in it. And then the ship explodes, and you're like, how far away were you?
Exactly. You don't know whether they're traveling towards each other, past each other. You can't really get a sense of it. All you can really appreciate is the style and the sound effects of lasers. And, you know, this film coming out when it did on the big screen, you know, with the sound effects, and it could probably be enjoyed then. Watching this on a DVD or a Blu-ray or watching it at home, it doesn't stand. Those parts of the film don't stand up.
Yeah, it's still got like the Sunday afternoon aspect of it, but only if you really, really want to sit down and watch on a Sunday afternoon. You know, if you're flicking through the channels, you'll come up to the laser battles and be like, well, fuck that, I'll watch Star Wars. I mean, one thing that I've never got, and I only noticed it watching this sort of review, is that the rebel pilots, or the mercenaries, when it cuts to them in their cockpits, they're just kind of sat there, and it's like they're looking either out their cockpit screens or they're looking at targeting screens to see where the enemy are. But you don't realise that because the camera's facing the actor's face. So the actor's kind of just like, you know, that happens pretty much all the time when they're all sat in their cockpits. For the mutants, I think it's even worse. Because there's a mutant pilot sat in one of the fighters at one point who has to keep pressing the button so that the thing will keep firing its lasers. You know, nowadays you've just got auto fire. You hold the button down and it just keeps fucking firing until you're out of ammo. This guy's like, pew, 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 pew.
Speaking of beeps and buzzes, right at the beginning of the film where you get these two guys in this sort of floating weather station.
Oh god, yeah.
And I was just like, after 30 seconds of just hearing constant beeps and buzzes, I was like, god damn it, these two guys have been trapped in this tin can for months, years.
We got visitors. Hello there. Welcome to the outer atmosphere of the planet Akir.
Put it through the language translator.
And that beeping and buzzing must have driven them insane by now.
See, what I don't understand, and this is it. How did they get up there? The only ship they seem to have is Nell.
Yeah.
So they must, travel upwind now every now and again, drop the people off, fly back down, leave them up there for a couple of months, take them up supplies. Because I don't know how big that space station is, but it seemed like there was only enough space for those two guys to sit in. Yeah. You know, is the airlock door like right next to them? Like, don't open that door, dude. Do not open the door. I mean, some of the unique factors, like in this film, are quite cool. The weather space station is quite cool, but I also like there's two mutants that get left behind by Lord Sador to guard the planet, and they see Shad leave and go to chase him, but obviously he outraces them. And they return back to the planet because that's their mission. But they grow bored, so they kidnap one of the women from the planet and take her up into their ship. And you're like, well, I don't think they're going to be nice to her, because when Shad returns with the mercenaries, the two mutants are like, stop, we got to leave this woman alone because we've got to try and attack these people. And the woman comes in looking all kind of, disheveled, her hair's all over the place. And she conveniently forces the ship to explode because it gets shot by Gelt. But you're like, was she getting raped?
1, 3, 5, 6, 7. Timbo, come on up here.
I'm busy.
Forget about her. Something's coming.
Did they have a rape sequence in this film that they cut out?
Yeah, it's Roger Corman,
Yeah, probably.
So as we've had, we've had the cowboy drop the hint that this is time to remember the Alamo, Custer's last stand. And so, the battle commences and we see some of our heroes or our anti-heroes get shot out of the sky. And, you kind of feel sorry for some of them as like the Valkyrie. It's like, she's like, it's better to die than to be killed. And so she sort of ejects from it. She suicidal runs at the ship and ejects from it. And sort of, I don't know whether she hits the self-destruct or whether she kind of gets blown to pieces.
Yeah, I think it's a self-destruct thing because that was a pretty big bang.
Yeah.
Taking out those fighters at the same time. So, I like the way that the fighters just kind of come down like that.
Yeah.
And stop.
I am Saint-Exmin of the Valkyrie. It's been a very enjoyable fight.
Live fast, fight well, and have a beautiful ending.
And Gelt gets blown out of the sky.
Yeah.
The cowboy who's leading the resistance on the planet decides, no, I'm gonna have to get in my ship and get up there too.
Yeah.
Cayman also launches a suicidal attack at Sador, and I just love the shot of his face as he's sort of in surprise that his plan didn't work.
It's like the scream from Saint-Exmin as well as she's flying at the stellar conveyor. I think she damages it, but it's the way that she's like, she flies at it. I'm like, what the fuck, woman? Save the screen for when you die.
But I also really love the sequence towards the end of the film when Gelt has passed and Shad's just like, okay, we need to bury him and you cook him a full course meal and bury it with him. Well, what about the food? So I made a promise, something to eat and somewhere to hide. Yeah. I was like, well, I really like that moment.
Yeah.
And so some of the characters, when they do meet their end, it's kind of like Nestor. They're like, oh, we failed. Our plan to assassinate Sador failed. And so you watch them just pushing buttons. They take a hit and they spin off out of control and explode.
Yeah.
And the rest of the characters like, oh, Nestor's dead. Oh, well.
Carry on, we've got a whole planet to save. Needs of the many and all that kind of shit.
And so eventually it does just come down to Shad and his ship Nell. And they also decide, screw it, suicide course, straight into Sador's ship. Nell takes a hit and sort of loses her memory banks.
Yeah.
And she's also kind of deeply affected that her previous owner, Zed, has also just died.
Yes, on the planet, yeah.
And so she decides that she's going to self-destruct and take Sador and his ship with her, giving just enough time for Shad and Nanelia to escape.
So it all turns out well in the end, but like I said at the beginning, if you've seen Seven Samurai, Magnificent Seven, you kind of knew what was going to happen. The mercs were going to die, but that's the merc life, really. My favourite scenes, I mean, like I said, nostalgically, I absolutely love the film, but there's only a few real scenes that really stand out for me. The first one is when Sador meets the emissary from that planet. One of his mutant friends says, the emissary from this planet that we're going to has returned. Oh yeah, where is he? And Sador gets handed this tiny little bag. And Sador's like, what's this? And the guy goes, it's the emissary. They dusted him or powdered him. And I'm like, ooh, shit. They are in so much fucking trouble when Sador gets there. You should not have done that. Second sequence, favorite scene is Sybil Danning and the transistor speech. I mean, I'm probably just going to montage like a whole Sybil Danning thing here of her in different angles and things.
I love her Valkyrie outfit.
Yeah.
But then when she turns up in an S&M outfit.
Oh, the black leather. Oh, that's like a war death outfit. I'm like, oh, yeah, okay. I can live with that. And my last favourite scene is the destruction of Nell. I mean, you've kind of gone through the whole film now, the relationship between her and Shad. You know, it as a sci-fi fan, as one of those people who does just want to get into a ship and fly into space and kind of live the space cowboy life, you'd love an artificial intelligent like Nell to keep you company for those long hauls. But when she loses her memory banks and then she can't count, you know, she's counting all over the place, and Shad says to her, look, just start at 10. She's like 10, 11, 7, 5, 5, 5, and then just detonates, and you're like, no. So yeah, those are my favorite scenes.
One of my first favorite scenes is the cowboy and his utility belt.
Oh, the whiskey.
But it's not the utilities that Batman would consider essential. The cowboy has whiskey, soda, and fucking ice cubes.
It's where the budget for the film went.
I was just like, I need one of those belts. And I love later on in the film when he's just like, yep. And he just pours whiskey into it. She's like, well, you forgot the soda and the ice. He's like, oh, no, I didn't. I was like, yeah, that's great. I also, as I've said, I think Robert Vaughn just delivers an outstanding performance in this film. It sort of elevates the film. It sort of helps save it from being renegated to another crappy Star Wars knockoff.
Yeah.
Him believing in his character, just all of his scenes, right up into his final moments, are so memorable. Of course, the robots at the beginning of the film, when he goes to that space station, just their behaviour and just the awkward creepiness of the whole atmosphere of that sequence.
Yeah.
Also very, very memorable. And yeah, you know, we've said it enough times. We'll say it again. Sybil Danning. Just unforgettable, really. And lastly, I love all of the spaceships. I think they're all great. They're such uniquely imaginative. And so it sort of paved the way for the future of coming up with weird alien designs for spacecraft. I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
So, you know, I do recommend Battle Beyond the Stars because as a fan of cheesy, sort of schlocky movies that are passionately made, that have a heart and soul behind them, of course, it's easy for me to get behind them. And sometimes you get so sick of uber glossy movies, and sometimes, like, the new Star Wars films just don't do it for you. And so sometimes you just want to go back and watch something that's raw and ready and thrown together.
Yeah.
But still manages to deliver on what it promised, which is adventure, fantasy, comedy, horror, sex. It's all in here in one great little package. And yeah, it is rough and ropey, and by today's standards, a lot of new audiences, it's instantly disposable.
Yeah.
But it's got a charm and a replayability or rewatchability that you're still going to be enjoying this film as a cult classic for years to come.
See, I also recommend Battle Beyond the Stars, but as a warning, you know, I recommend it because for me, nostalgically, I love the movie, and if you grew up with it in the 80s, you'll want to go back and watch it. You know, there is no way on hell or high water you can put Battle Beyond the Stars next to, say, Star Wars Force Awakens. You know, they are 30, 40 years well apart from each other. And Battle Beyond the Stars just has this thing that there's a part of it for me of when I was a little kid, before cinema fully took over my life. There was a time where one day I sat down in front of my TV and it just happened to be on, you know, and I get to go back and revisit those kind of things. Also, if you're going to watch it, please go back and watch Seven Samurai first. go back and watch The Magnificent Seven and then watch Battle Beyond the Stars, because as much as these films, as much as those two later films ripped off Seven Samurai, they all stand alone in their own separate genres. You know, you've got feudal historical Japan, you've got Western, you've got sci-fi, you know, and they may all have the exact same storyline, but they all stand out from all their own separate genres. As a bonus, 2 bonuses, Sybil Danning. That's it.
Thanks for watching Off the Shelf Reviews.
Tingle, dingle, dangle, prangle his transistors.